Welcome everyone, Chris Petri here. It's fun time. It's a great time to create some interesting paintings. We're going to kind of continue on the theme that we've been doing in the last couple video series, and that's painting in more of a loose style, using some, I guess, more amounts of water and paint, using some mop brushes and just going with a little more loose look, perhaps trying some new techniques, of course. You'll always hear me say, like, try new things in watercolor, especially when you start doing it a lot and you're working at it, quite frequently. You sometimes get bored just doing the same exercises or drawings or pictures or so forth. So what I always say is, if you can expand your horizons a little bit and go out and maybe buy a new brush or two once in a while and try it out and see how it works, and maybe um, you know try pulling some new photographs off the internet that are maybe different artists that you like, watercolor artists that are maybe a little bit of different, have a different technique than maybe someone that you're following at the time being. You can come up with some great valuable learning lessons when you do that, and it also just helps you to create a more diversified technique, a set of tools, so to speak, if like a toolbox. The more different techniques you practice, you're going to have more tools in your toolbox. And that means if you come across an issue when you're doing a painting, or you're trying to tackle a new subject matter, you'll have more tools in your toolbox to try to attack or work with those new um, styles of painting, or some new subject matter you're going to work on. So it always helps just to have more techniques than less. Um, so I always say practice as many techniques as you can, but I think it's good to stick with one main technique, really. And then maybe as an offshoot, you try other ones here and there just to see how they work, and just to maybe do a little bit of practice off to the side once in a while to take a break from your normal routine. So normal routine is important, I will say that, but also too, going off on the sidetrack a little bit and practicing some different techniques will help you. So I'm hoping that this is what this does, is this helps you to try some new techniques, some new brushes, maybe some new paint colors, some new design ideas, some new subject matter. That's what I have always done as a watercolor artist, especially after a couple years or so of really doing it all the time. I noticed that I needed more interesting things to work with to keep myself interested and excited about it. So I'm hoping you'll kind of, if you run into that roadblock where you feel like you're getting bored with certain things in your painting, that's when I hope you'll just um, grab a new brush somehow, or some new paper, some new subject matter, so a new artist's style. You pick up a new style maybe of someone that paints a little differently than you normally do, and I think that'll just all help you to achieve your best results that you want in your watercolor painting. So let's get right into it here. I have a more thicker lead pencil here. It's a retractable lead pencil. Statler is the brand. Actually, this might be something a little different. This is a Statler, I believe. The it's worn off the lettering, so I can't really tell right now. But and then there's also, this is a Statler sharpener. So this is the thicker lead pencil. It's a 1.0 lead, and you put it in. You retract this here. So this retracts in and out, really simple. And then you put it into this, and then it comes out with a nice point. So this is a little bit heavier of a pencil, heavier lead, and it's also just weightier. So here, what I'll do is we'll do a nice, beautiful scene along the shore, along the ocean, and I already have sketched out the drawing underneath this, but it's a little hard to see with the lighting. So what I just wanted to do is just kind of show you what the sketch looks like somewhat, and how I went about sketching it before I paint. And the other thing I would say is I did paint it, or I did sketch it very lightly underneath here. So on this finished watercolor paper, I sketched it very lightly because I don't want too many pencil lines showing through on this particular painting. Although I normally like pencil lines showing through my paintings, but for this occasion, that just doesn't really kind of seem to be like the look, because I kind of lightly sketched this. I didn't really contour draw this one. Um, so essentially I just took a photograph offline, and then I kind of just got the feel of it, and I said to myself, all right, let's kind of get the basic idea of the drawing. So I wanted to get the horizon line of the ocean across the page, and it's about one third up from the bottom, the ocean horizon line. And then there's some cottages here, so I sketched them in. And what I'll do is I'll try to go a little darker here so we can kind of see here. So I got the roof line, and I did the doors and a couple windows. And then there was another section over here maybe. And another couple windows. And then over here I did a nice some palm trees. And I lightly sketched them. I didn't go with too much care and specifics. I just sort of tried to keep it loose and the ideas of palm trees, and then I had another smaller one here. And again, I keep my hand resting on the paper at all times, and I tend to work left to right since I'm right-handed, so I would start my sketch usually on the left side of the page and then work my way across. In this way, because I have my hand at all times on the paper, resting my hand on the paper firmly and lightly. Sometimes if I'm making lines, I'm using light pressure to do this. And again, this is just a rough sketch. The painting and the brushes and everything and the paint and the watercolor are going to take over and do all the work on these trees here, but I just wanted to kind of rough them in. So that's pretty much the trees to the left or to the right. You can create this any way you want. You can move things around from your photograph. If you have a photograph and you want to change it, you can move things around the way you think it looks best or the way you want it to look. It's your painting. You're the artist. And there's some, foreground here. And I think there was a couple fence posts maybe. And then some rocks. And again, for like rocks and things, we can just make a note of them here with just a little bit of pencil marks, and then we know when we're using our brush later, we'll put those in. And then we just have some waves in the water. So this is all water here and over here. And then some water over here too on this side, which looks good. And then maybe here there's a little bit of bushes, maybe some trees here a little bit too, just to make it interesting along the house. Good thing to remember is when you're doing trees and bushes and palm trees and foliage and things and grass, maybe some grass and weeds and things, tend to keep them all swinging in the same motion. That usually looks really good. I know in real life if the wind blows, things go back and forth across like so. But in a painting, if you keep everything flowing in the same direction, like the leaves and the branches and the bushes and stuff, if you kind of have them all leaning in the same direction, it makes for a more realistic and pleasing look to your painting. Just something to keep in mind. But it's always good, I think, for the most part, to have your trees and your bushes again and your twigs and grass and things like that sort of going in the same direction, with maybe one or two, occasionally maybe just a couple leaves or blades of grass going the other way. But for the most part, most of them going in, let's say, the way the wind is blowing in that direction. Okay, so that's how I did my sketch. Only thing different was I did it lighter. I didn't do it as dark here, as you can see. So if I lift this up here, you can see my sketch probably somewhat lighter though. Okay, so we have our sketch done. We take a break, walk away 10-15 minutes, take a nice break, let our concentration level build back up again. Sometimes if we work for too long of a time, and if we don't take breaks, it tends to lead to mistakes on the paper, like with the painting or the drawing. So if you tend not to take breaks, trust me, take breaks and you'll see you'll have more of an easier time with having problems with maybe the drawing not going as good or your painting. Okay, so we got this here, sketch done. I am using pretty much my maybe like 4 brushes here, 3 mops, and then a round. So these are squirrel hair mops, and this is a Kolinsky Sable round brush with a nice point. These mops have beautiful points too as well. And that's the brushes. And then of course I'll zoom out so you can see my setup, which on our last video series we looked at our setup. So our setup is pretty simple. We have palettes and paint on the left, which I say you should do the opposite of this. If you're right-handed, you would have your palette on your right side with your water and your sponge for checking water. So when you have your brush and you put water on it, you tap it on the sponge a little bit, take a little bit of the excess water off, and then you can go to your palette over here on this right side. I do things a little odd here for my own reasons, but it's not a good plan to put your palette across. It's not a good idea to cross over the top of your paper when you're working. You should usually have either, if you're left-handed, everything on the left or right. And then if, of course, if you're right-handed, it's a lot easier if you have everything on your right. And if you're left-handed, it's easier to have everything over on your left. And working in that fashion is much more of a technique that'll keep you from dripping anything onto your watercolor paper when you're working. All right, so let's maybe start this here. Again, this is a nice so I have some French ultramarine blue and some purple mixture, and we're going to do some clouds to start with. Then I'm going to go in with some burnt umber, a little bit of alizarin crimson to warm that up just a little bit, more of a reddish color, and maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, and then maybe a little bit of cerulean blue. So I'm making sort of a grayish color with a little bit of warmth to it, with some, again, burnt umber, burnt sienna, a little bit of cerulean blue for the clouds. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, we're going to do the sky, lots of water. I'm going to put in the clouds first. Lots of water. Then I mix in some blue. Okay, some French ultramarine and purple. Just some touches of blue in there and that's about it. I'm not going to go crazy here, but we got on plenty of water, plenty of clouds, and I'll just get some more around here and there. Okay, that's good. We'll be back.